Now you're looking for trouble condition.
Hello and welcome to another episode of American Werewolves, where we talk all things horror. I am your co-host, Brandon.
And I am Jerry.
And after I feel like a little too long, we are finally sitting down and talking about Longlegs. We would have done this sooner, but life, of course, it gets in the way. We get busy. But we are now sitting here and we are talking about the latest from Neon, which Neon's been getting pretty popular these last few years. They've released a lot of good movies like Parasite, which, took home a bunch of Oscars the year it came out back in 2019. They got a new one called Honora, which looks amazing. Not a horror movie, but still really cool. And they just today picked up Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks. If you're not familiar, he's a YouTuber now, going to be filmmaker. Which the point is, they've been growing more and more. They're getting a lot more popular, and by far their biggest movie is Longlegs. This movie's marketing was so good. It's probably some of the best marketing I've seen for any horror movie. If I'm going to be honest, I've never seen so many people so hyped up for like not just an independent movie, but an original independent horror movie. It's kind of rare that these movies actually pop off and they start getting recognition just based off word of mouth, honestly.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's the latest film from Oz Perkins, or Osgood Perkins. People call him either or. He is, for those that don't know, he is the son of Sir Anthony Perkins, who is best known for playing Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So that's a fun little piece of trivia right there. He comes from a family that is popular because of the horror genre, and now this man is making a staple in the genre himself. That's pretty cool. The plot pretty much follows as this, and I was just reading it over to make sure it doesn't give away, because honestly, the less you know about this movie going in, the better the experience is going to be for you. 1,000%. In pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree. That's probably the best I'll put it. We're gonna honestly, I feel like we're going to just briefly go over our non-spoiler thoughts first, because there's no way we can talk about this movie without delving into the nitty-gritty of it all. There's so much to unpack with this one. So yeah, we're going to go over our non-spoiler thoughts, our experience with the film, and what we thought overall, and then we'll dive into the big story beats. Now, the film stars Michael Monroe, which she's very well known in the horror genre. She started getting really popular in the genre with It Follows, a movie that I love. That's her right there behind Jerry. A movie I love personally. I love it a lot, and that's also getting a sequel coming out sometime soon. I'm curious what they're even going to do with that, how that's going to work. But yeah, she was in that. She was in the film The Guest with Dan Stevens, and she was in Watcher, which is a really, really, really awesome little thriller. And now she's in this, and this is probably by far her biggest movie. This is the one that I think is really going to blow her up and get her on the map more and more. She was already pretty popular. Now she's going to pop off. And it also stars Nicolas Cage, who his name is all over the posters and the trailers, but you wouldn't know unless you were really paying attention. If you saw it in passing, you wouldn't know, because that's him right there. They don't show his face at all in any of the marketing. They're really, really hiding the fact that he's in this movie, or at least what he looks like. We'll get more into that look later on in the video. Now, Jerry, what were, I guess, your thoughts about this movie before you went in?
I remember seeing the trailer and it not really giving away much. And
did you like that, or were you kind of annoyed by that?
No, I liked it. I liked that it didn't really spoil anything in the movie like most trailers will. But I was just confused because the trailer also didn't really explain the plot itself. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this movie is. And at first I was like, okay, I guess. And I'm so glad that I didn't even get an explanation on the plot in the trailer. So
Yeah, so you just went completely blind. Like you maybe had inklings that this was like a crime thriller at
I
most.
I knew it was about a trying to track down a serial killer. I knew that much.
Gotcha.
But like I didn't really know anything. I knew Nicolas Cage is in it. I didn't really know anything outside of that.
Yeah. And it's yeah, that's crazy. And just has to props again to Neon for that marketing, because I swear, like when the teasers first started coming out, the title of the movie wasn't even released yet. They had like 3 teasers, I think, before they came up. Like they had a teaser for the teaser, honestly. That had no title. It only had a date. And you didn't know who or what until you got the first official teaser, I guess, that, oh, this is a horror movie about the occult starring Nicolas Cage and Maya Monroe. And Nicolas Cage playing a serial killer off bat, that's already going to get people in the seats. Like if you
Right.
hear about that, but it's one of those things where, like, if you don't read up on it, you're not going to know. You're not going to know at all, like, what's going. Some creepy shit right there, Jerry. Door slamming as we're talking about a serial killer. um, yeah, you just, like, you really know where it was gonna go, and that was just the intrigue off the bat. Like, it just was all cryptic and had this crazy, creepy looking imagery, and that was my worry too. As much as exciting as that was, it was kind of my worry where I was like, I really hope that the marketing isn't going to promise me a movie that I'm not gonna get. I remember even saying that in our most anticipated horror lists a few episodes back.
Right.
And, it was a worry, but I was still really looking forward to it. And so was everyone else. It was super hyped up. And having now seen the movie, I definitely got the movie that I was promised for the most part, in my opinion. I think this movie is, I had a lot of time to think about this movie because, I mean, as you know, I saw it twice.
Yeah.
And the first time I was not in the best state of mind to watch this movie. I had too many cocktails before. And I went with some friends though. And we got out. I was not crazy about it when I saw it. And I kept telling myself, like, oh no, like I wasn't, I was definitely fine enough to take it in. But I talked to you all about it a little bit, and you're like, I think you need to watch this again. Like, clear. So I gave you that. And I went the next day to go see it again right after work. And I really took in the movie. And I'm glad I did, because I really did enjoy it a lot more the second time. But still, there are a few things here and there that I was not vibing with that I was right about the first time. And I know I wasn't the only one, because, a lot of people responded differently in the theater. There were some people that I heard talking about it after the screening, and they were like, oh my God, like that was really cool. That was so creepy. Got under my skin. Are you still there?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Something popped up on my screen. Yeah, there were a lot of people talking about it after we got out of the theater. And then there was also the other half of people that the moment it ended, I heard 2 people scream boo at the fucking screen. And someone said, fuck this movie. So it is not a movie that is going to be for everyone. But for me, I think it's a really special horror film. I think it is a really, really cool movie. It's just one I wished I loved a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I know you walked out of this completely surprised.
So I went in, expecting to watch a good movie because the reviews that had come out for it, were very good.
They weren't.
They were.
Oh, they were.
They
okay,
were
because
very
I didn't
good.
look up anything about this movie except for like I saw the few tasers, but I stayed away from reviews. Um,
I
for
didn't
the most,
like look up
I saw headlines.
reviews, but yeah, like I didn't look up reviews, but I heard like, actors I follow who had seen the movie were talking about how good it was, and just
Okay.
like my For You page on Instagram, just, saying how good the movie was on posts and stuff. So I was expecting to see a movie that I would enjoy. I did not expect to walk out of this movie absolutely in love with this film. Like, I, from the opening scene, I was hooked. I was so concentrated on this film. Like, usually if I'm watching a movie and someone like texts me or something, like I'll quickly like glance at my watch to see like what, the alert was or anything. I didn't fucking look at my watch. Like, my watch is vibrating, and I was like, I don't care what's happening right now. Like, I was locked in. I did not feel. How long is the movie? An hour and 40
It's only
minutes?
an hour and 44 minutes.
It felt. I wished it was longer. Like, I was so invested in it, and I didn't want the story to end. And I walked out of this film damn near like speechless and I haven't walked out of a film speechless since 1917, which is a
Oh, I thought you meant
phenomenal
the
movie.
year. I was like,
No,
hold on.
I'm a vampire. That's the real American Werewolves.
Wait, well, sir.
It's a great movie, 1917. Go watch that. It's on Netflix. But yeah, I walked out just in complete awe at what I had just watched, and I wish I had seen it twice. Like, I'm probably at some point, not probably, 100% gonna go watch it again in theaters at some point, and when it comes out on Blu-ray, I will be purchasing the movie,
Yeah.
because it's fucking phenomenal. I loved it.
I'm so glad. That makes me happy. Like truly, honestly, like it's one of those things where at first I was kind of like annoyed almost because I was like, this in my opinion, when I first watched it, and even the second time when I got out of the theater, I was like, I felt like this movie was just overhyped. And in a way, it was. People, the taglines of people calling it the scariest movie of the decade, all this
Yeah.
and that. I'm like, no, it's not. Calm down. It is
No,
not.
it's not. It definitely has its jump scares, but it's not like the scariest movie.
Yeah.
Of what I
It's
will
yeah.
say is throughout the film, at least for me, there's very much a sense of like uneasiness. Like, I felt,
Constant.
yeah, I almost felt like you feel uneasy, but like I almost felt like uncomfortable, like in
Oh
the
yeah.
theater, which like the whole time, which like I've never felt that in a movie. Like, I've seen, horror movies that I love and that I think are great, but I've never felt uneasy like throughout the duration of a film.
Mm.
And that was definitely something that contributed to this film now being such a special film to me.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Um, I remember leaving that theater the first time thinking you specifically were not gonna like this, and I was like, man, me and Jerry are gonna be on the same page with these elevated art house horror movies. And then like I call you, I'm like, what'd you think? And you were like, I loved it, 10 out of 10, this and that. And you were going on and on for a solid 2 minutes, and I'm just kind of sitting there quiet, and you're like, are you there? And I'm like, mm-hmm. You were like, oh no, what did you think? And I was like, oh, I was being unfair, of course, at first. I told you, I just straight up, I didn't like it. At first, I thought it was frustrating. I thought it was, you know, a little too confusing. I kind of felt dumb, but then again, I wasn't in the right state of mind also. Um, and I was like, so, like, for sure, like, you were going to be like, this just reminds me like Hereditary. It's slow, it's boring, I don't get it, it's confusing. And my light went out. Oh my God. This video is going to look funny. All right, whatever. You'll be fine. Yeah, but I had to go back and watch it again, and I'm really glad I did because there is a lot I really, really do love about this movie. Which off bat, the opening of this movie, like this movie is split into three parts: part one, part two, part three. I believe part one is perfect. It is so expertly paced from the opening shot all the way to you see the title card for part two pop up. I was in it. I really was. I was super, super, super locked in. And like just that, like you said, the atmosphere of it, this feeling of dread that's just present throughout is it gets very unnerving. There's a lot of stuff in the shadows that the way the way the camera is framed, like for one, the cinematography in this is also perfect. Every shot is just immaculate.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never seen a
amazing.
horror movie look so good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in a really creepy way. But the way some of these shots are framed, it's like it has your eyes darting around every corner of the screen looking for something because you feel this, you feel you see Longlegs in the opening. You don't really see him, but he's there. Like he's obscured. And you don't see him much throughout this movie, but you feel his presence throughout.
Yeah.
Like he is in there, whether he's in the scene or not. And I thought Oz Perkins did a really good job at setting that up very, very well and keeping it consistent tone wise throughout the film. It was very, very it's just creepy, man. I don't know how else to put it. Isn't the creepiest movie ever? No, but like I will not lie, it creeped me the fuck out a lot of the times, and it had me like trying to guess like what the hell was gonna happen next. Um, so yeah, cinematography was good, and the music also accompanying these scenes, like it elevated it a lot. It is a really good score. It really adds to that really dark and dreary atmosphere. It makes you feel like you're watching something you're not supposed to be watching half the time, especially since this film has to deal with like it touches upon the occult and other stuff in it too, which is really cool. Um, Now the acting in this also very very good. Nicolas Cage. I won't say much about him right now, but this is definitely the creepiest he's ever been. He hasn't really done a lot of horror movies. He's done more thrillers and stuff and comedies. So this is his first like real delve into playing a serial killer or playing a really creepy villain. As far as I know. I mean, it's not like Face Off or anything. It's far from it. That one's all over the top playful. Ugh, this is very it's a very unnerving, uncomfortable performance to watch a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Michael Monroe, I love her. I've said it before. Quoted about her so much. I think she's really good in this movie. Her performance helps you stay locked in. I will say though, I'll have to be honest right off the bat. She's not a character that I found very interesting. I found her very subdued. And I've even heard, and I was always trying to figure out why. And I've even heard little things here and there that it's implied, like people are implying that she may be on the spectrum in this movie, like her character. And there's also other aspects about her which I won't get into here because I feel like it was definitely nothing. It was definitely something I was not expecting this movie to go towards. But regardless of how I felt about her character, I felt like she played it perfect the way she needed to. Like
Yeah, I could see people assuming or thinking that her character Lee is on the spectrum. That's not how I took it. I took it as someone who is just very socially awkward.
that's how I saw it too. I
Like
just thought she was a very awkward character.
I found her to be someone who is just very fucking like Sherlock, like someone who is very brilliant, and their brilliance kind of gets in the way of their sociability. I don't know if that's a word.
Right.
But because, you see Sherlock Holmes, fucking brilliant mind, but when speaking with others, he kind of has difficulty, some kind of just being a normal fucking
Yeah, it's
human.
difficulty relating.
I didn't really watch the show much, but I watched it enough, like Bones. I don't know. I know her last name is Bones, but the Dr. Bones, she's brilliant, but she was a very socially awkward character. And that's kind of how I saw her, just someone who was too smart, and it affects her day-to-day life because of how smart she is.
Yeah, and that's the way I would agree with that more than thinking she was on the spectrum. I mean, I don't think it really has anything to do with the plot overall, but I mean, if she was playing it that way, I guess it worked out. I just, regardless, I felt the character was very subdued.
Yeah.
And I felt myself struggling to connect with her.
Interesting.
She has an interesting background. You don't get much information on it, and that's another thing with this movie. It doesn't let you in on a lot. Even by the time the credits start rolling, there's still a lot you don't know, but there's enough that you can latch onto where you're like, I can see where all these people are coming from.
No, I loved her character. I thought the character was like perfectly written. I didn't really need to know much else about her than what we got.
Yeah.
I thought the way that she played her was fucking perfect. I like, even like small things, like you'll notice throughout the film just how socially awkward she is, and whenever she's speaking with her mom throughout the film, those are the only times that she smiles. Like, those are the only times that she like breaks this kind of socially awkward character that she is. And whenever she's speaking with her mom, she seems like just an everyday person, which she is an everyday person, but she seems more comfortable, more fluid. She doesn't seem so tense like she is most of the film. Right. It was just like small things like that I really loved in her performance.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we see more of her personality definitely around her mom a little more.
Yeah.
But the smiles, they didn't seem, I don't know about you. I mean, it didn't seem like genuine smiles. Like, obviously, I think she was happy to see her mom because that's her family. Mm-hmm. But there was this sense of uneasiness of their relationship. Like, they're clearly two people that are not on the same page, but she loves her mom and she's going to take care of her mom. Mm-hmm. And there's something about it that is just off a little bit. And you can tell that Michael Monroe's character feels it. And obviously, for reasons later, you do find out why her behavior is a certain way, which we'll talk about a little more. Which, by the way, her mom, played by Alicia Witt, perfect. I loved her. I was kind of blown away that this was the same one that was in the film Urban Legend, which I was telling you about the other night. That was like so surprised because she was unrecognizable in this movie, but she's so good in here. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to see more of her because I've never seen her act like this before at all. Like, I definitely want to keep an eye out for her now. She's very, very good in this. But yeah, the stuff of her mom, there's things about the mom that I was like, about, which we'll get into in a bit. And also there's Blair Underwood, who plays Agent Carter, that is partner up with Lee, Michael Monroe's character. I don't know much about this actor, but I do know he was good in this film. I don't know if you recognized him in anything else beforehand. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking at his filmography right now. He's in Deep Impact, Rules of Engagement. I don't know any of these movies, but I thought he was really good in this movie too. I think everyone's acting was top notch, like all around everywhere. Like, everyone brought their A game to it. And I'll say this about the story before we get into details. Now, I did find the story very, very interesting. It's very different, very original. Like I said, I was like, when I went in, I was expecting more of a vibe like Seven or Silence of the Lamb or Zodiac, a lot of those like 90s serial killer movies. This is very much a throwback to that type of genre, which is like pretty cool. But it goes a different direction, and it's a very cool, original, interesting direction. But I felt as it kind of kept going, it got a little messier. At least the first time I watched it. When I watched it a second time, it does flow a little better, but there's still some things that I'm like, about. Uh, mainly with the mainly with how the story kind of comes to a conclusion, which we'll get into. But overall, I I think this movie is really, really good. Definitely worth checking out. A little overhyped, but definitely not the scariest movie ever. But it is super, super creepy. And I think it's definitely one that is worth watching if you are interested. But again, this movie is not going to be for everyone because there are certain things in this movie that are going to hit or miss for a lot of people.
Mhm.
Story wise. And I'll even say this: there may be um, the Nick Cage performance is. I've already talked to some people about it, and they're kind of mixed on it already. Some people love it. Some people just couldn't get into it. And I get it. There's only two moments for Nick Cage's character where I was like, I I wasn't really I know I was supposed to be creeped out and I wasn't. Like even my friend Bree, like there was a moment where it was supposed to be creepy, but her and I were just laughing a little bit. And it was one of those that didn't work, but it didn't take away from his performance out overall from me. I still thought everything else he did was very, very good, very unsettling. Um, the way he looks is just so it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's just gross. It's fucking gross in the best way possible. Like they did what they were going for in I think a great way. Um, I think that's about all I have for spoiler free thoughts right now, though.
Yeah, yeah, I know what parts you're talking about, and we'll get into that. Yeah, because – it's interesting that you had issues with it, because like I didn't. Like I saw those scenes, his performance in those scenes is very unsettling. Like every time it's so crazy, like just how this movie made me feel while watching, because every time his scenes like came on screen, I was almost like, fuck, I don't want to watch. Like I did
You just like I
not.
want to get out of this theater now.
Yeah, I did not want to see him on screen because he's so fucking creepy in this movie, and it's so good, and it's creepy to the point where I was like, I don't want to fucking watch him. But like I needed to, and I will
Yeah.
again. But yeah,
Oh, I know
that's
you will. I'm honestly surprised you haven't already since watching it the first time. I'm not gonna lie.
only reason I haven't is because I've just been working. But like, if I had a day off, like I would absolutely go watch it again.
I
Um,
got you.
but yeah, no, I mean, I'm ready to get into like actual spoiler stuff.
Okay, cool, cool. And I will say this: I am just I'm so glad that this movie worked for you. Even though it didn't work for me, I'm fucking so happy it worked for you because I feel like it's gonna, in a way, this movie I feel like it's gonna pave the way to open you to more movies with like a similar feel and tone. Like I know you weren't the biggest fan of Hereditary
Hmm.
when that came out. You definitely had your problems with it, which is funny enough. You say your problem with that film is the third act, kind of similar to my problems with Longlegs is the third act. Um, and but I feel like it's gonna open, pave the way for other elevated horror movies. I guess it's kind of like It's kind of weird fucking saying that. I'm not gonna lie. It's like saying like, oh yeah, this movie's better than that other than like fucking slasher. Like fuck that shit. We're art. You know,
Yeah.
like that term's just goofy to me. But yeah, I'm just glad you really enjoyed it. But we will get into exactly why. So if you have not seen Longlegs, go check it out. We're about to go into spoilers. You know, obviously Jerry and I recommend the movie. It is definitely one worth watching if you are a horror fan. And like I said, if the marketing intrigued you in any way, just stop what you're doing, go out and watch it. And if you don't care, stick around. But I highly recommend you do not, you do not watch any further, because even if you haven't seen it and we start talking about things, you're still going to be confused as hell. That's what the hell we're even talking about. Yeah. So spoilers from here on out.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. Now, in the beginning of this movie, very early on, we find out that Lee Harker, Michael Monroe's character, is a touch clairvoyant. She has potentially, she has this ability that allows her to see things other people can't. They're implying that she's psychic. She took, after the incredible opening scene where she's like, you know, she's knocking door to door with her partner earlier on in the movie, Deputy so-and-so, I can't remember his name. Like he gets shot as soon as they go to the house. Like before that, like they're knocking door to door. She's looking around and she's like, it's that house. And he's like, how do you know? And she's like, I just know. So they check the house out. Her partner gets killed immediately, and she manages to subdue their target. And right after, she's subjected to these psychological tests, and they're saying she's a touch clairvoyance. They're saying you passed, like I think they said you passed these certain tests 8 times.
Yeah.
But then she also says like, oh, but I also failed it. These other tests like 8 times. And I think he said something like a touch. I'm paraphrasing. He says something like, kind of psychic is better than not psychic at all, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the things I was really not expecting with this movie, was that it was going to kind of tiptoe a little bit in the supernatural. Yeah, I thought it was honestly going to be a straight up serial killer crime thriller.
And yeah, I wasn't expecting it to delve into the supernatural world either. And it doesn't really get, other than like her ability to like, which that ability isn't even,
it's not touched upon much again afterwards.
No, it's not a big part of the movie for me. 'Cause like, for me, it was just like, because it's not really used throughout the film, for most of the film, I was like, she's just really fucking smart, because like she cracks his like, you know, zodiac kind of symbol puzzles and stuff. And I was just like, okay, she's just super fucking smart. And she saw maybe like something about the window, and that's how she knew that the guy was in there. Like I didn't actually think she was psychic until it's revealed at the end that she does have these abilities because of this thing that we'll get into.
Yeah.
And typically I would fucking hate, because the movie is it feels very much grounded in reality. 95% of the film, until they throw in that element kind of at the end. And I would normally really despise that. And it just works. For me, it worked extremely well.
Yeah. That's the part that shocks me the most about this movie, is that it worked for you. That part works for you. Because I was like, that's literally the moment where I was like, oh, Jerry's going to hate it. like when they start bringing it back, and it's like, you see, the problem I didn't have a problem with that they brought it in. I had a problem with that they just kind of dumped all that information on you and kind of rushed it. And then the movie kind of ends, and you kind of have to interpret it your own way, which for the first time viewing, it's frustrating. Like, it got me kind of mad, because I was like, what are you doing? Like, it was a little frustrating. Second viewing, though, when you start catching little things here and there, it makes so much more sense. They really do have little breadcrumbs breadcrumbs. Ugh, that was not. Breadcrumbs scattered throughout this film. That implies more and more that the ability actually is working throughout the film. There is supernatural stuff actually sprinkled in. It's not just so obvious the first time. There's a lot of things in the shadow that you also don't catch the first time, like when Detective Carter is giving her all the Longlegs case for the first time, and she has all these photos and notes to look through. Then it goes through a brief little montage, and I didn't notice it the first time. I don't think you noticed it the first time, but in the corner at one point, you see this devil-like figure just in the background, and it slowly fades away. It's like you blink and you miss it, and it was that watching that second time, I'm not gonna lie, that was unnerving. I was like, oh shit. I think I visibly said oh shit out loud when I saw it. So stuff like that is cool. It happens throughout. And then there's also the scene in the house where she's outside because she hears a knock on the door and stuff. She goes outside and she doesn't see anyone outside, and then she looks around and she sees someone in her house. Obviously there's no one there when she goes back in. And that's when I was like, okay, this is supernatural. That's when it started really like delving more and more into that. And it was stuff like that I really enjoyed. And I think I enjoyed it when it was a little more subtle rather than in the third act when they kind of just full on throw it in your face. There's a lot of things that are also unexplained that I'm still fine with for the most part, but it's gonna have everyone kind of coming up with their own theories. Like it's the stuff with the dolls. Longlegs, he likes to gift these girls a doll just before their birthday, and they're always on the 14th. And these dolls have these like metal orbs inside the head that's supposed to represent the brain. And there's a lot of talk about what these orbs do and how they, they're a lot of the time they're saying like, oh, they're not doing anything. There's nothing, but clearly there's something going on with them. Like Longlegs is doing something with these orbs as he puts them in. And there's a lot of ways you could interpret what's going on with the orbs. At first I kind of started to think, I knew they were trying to say like, oh, there's something supernatural with the orbs and the dolls. And then I started to think, what if it was something else? But it was also a very far-fetched theory. Like, what if it was like, I don't know, the doll or something was like laced with something and it was kind of causing the family to go a little crazy. And I've even had discussions with other people about it too, the people I saw it with, and they were like, we're like, what if these were drugged? And yeah, it was just causing people to go crazy. But then by the time it rolls around to the end, it's like it's a little impossible for everyone to act the same exact way over if it were drugs. I mean, you would get a different reaction every time. So it definitely is more supernatural. But it's just a lot of ways to interpret it. I've heard some people say it's the souls of Longlegs that's in the orbs. I hear it's just the memories of his victims somehow. There's so much that I don't know. There's so much to unpack with it. What do you think they represent, honestly?
I think it's just this. It's hard to put into words. I think it's just. I don't think it's like anything deep, like it's the souls or like Longlegs, the memory of him or anything like that. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just evil. Like I think it's just like in the orb, it's this
just evil,
this entity that will basically hypnotize you to do horrible things because, and I didn't even like really consider this, but I don't think Longlegs. And Emma, brought it up. Like, I don't think Longlegs himself is human. I think Longlegs is this demon that has been brought to create just violence and havoc and evil. And these orbs are just whatever like black magic this demon needs or has to hypnotize the fathers of these families to do these horrible things.
Okay. That's a good one. The more I actually sit and think about it, I believe not only is Longlegs human, I think he's a victim of, I mean, because we find out by the end that Lee Harker's mom, played by Alicia Witt, is Longlegs' accomplice.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I don't think she's the only accomplice of Longlegs. I think she was the only accomplice in these maybe specific set of killings, because we don't delve into all of them. And he's been clearly doing it a little more before he gets involved with the Harker family all those years prior. I feel like Longlegs may have been potentially kind of like Lee Harker's mom, where she was a victim that kind of was like forced to do the devil's doing. You know, there's a lot of he talks about the man downstairs a lot and how like he's doing this before the man downstairs. And I feel like maybe long ago Longlegs was a person, and you know they've been doing it for so long that the evil kind of corrupted them, and that's why their face is the way it is. That's why their personality is the way it is. It's just warped completely. You can even argue that like he is a person that is eventually just, you know, taken over by this entity or whatever it is, by this evil. But that's the way I kind of view it.
Okay.
Which is why I love this. Like, there's so many ways you can interpret the way things play out in this movie, and I feel like it's gonna cause people to like view it over and over again, watch it multiple times to really like get a grasp on what they think. And I feel like either way, everyone is going to be right and everyone's going to be wrong, which is pretty cool. Like, I love when a movie can just open a discourse like that, especially horror.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, so you really had like no issue with the reveals towards the end or anything?
Not really, no.
No? I don't know. Maybe because it was just so sudden and rushed. And I guess, yeah, it was just kind of confusing how I guess my biggest issue was just the rules of like the orbs and stuff that really bothered me. At first, you know, I was really not sure how they worked. I didn't care about the why or how they came about. I mean, it's like you said, it could just be evil for all you know. That's all we really need to know. There's not much needed for that, but it was, I guess, how they worked, like how they were connected to these people, like to Lee Harker, how it made her clairvoyant, how it gave her, how like every time there was an orb affected, it kind of caused her to break down or have flashes of memories or flashes of other things and stuff like that.
It wasn't that the orb was, and that's why I think that the orbs aren't necessarily like one specific thing and that they can be anything, because Lee's orb was different than everyone else's. And we could even, you know, saying this now, we could probably assume that Lee is the way that she is, like as socially awkward as she is, because of the orb.
Right.
Because that first scene, she's not a very socially awkward person. She's a child, and she's, you know, she sees Longlegs, and she doesn't, it's not the same, and granted she is a child, but it's not the same Lee that we get throughout the film. And after that meeting is when, you know, that Lee doll is created with the orb in its head, and that's what gives her the abilities or the ability. And it doesn't make her like violent or anything like the other orbs do.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think it's like one specific thing. I think it's kind of just this magic of whatever Longleg needs it to be at the time.
Right. I guess, yeah. That's one way of looking at it too. Um, I will say this also, this is more nitpicky, I guess, but there were certain elements I found a little predictable too. Like throughout the whole time, I was like 100% confident that girl in the beginning was Michael Monroe's character, and they were like the whole time in the movie they're treating it like it what we had no idea who that was, and I'm like, that's her, right? Like, and I thought she remembered the whole time until like you pointed out, like I was watching the movie as if she knew the whole time, and you pointed out no, that's not the case at all. And then I went back and watched it, I was like, oh, she really doesn't remember that. Like
Yeah.
that did block out for her. And then also, I had a feeling it was her mother that was the accomplice, because there was no other options really
Yeah.
about who it could have been, and her mom is super fucking creepy. So I'm like, it's gotta be her. I don't know what else they could do, but yeah, it's really that was just the two little things that bothered me, I guess, plot wise. It's a little predictable. It doesn't make the story, doesn't take away from the story at all. For me, it was just things where I was like, movie, I caught up with you. Like I got it. And then of course the crazy ending happens, and you're just like, what the fuck did I just watch? But I guess we'll get to the moments with Nicolas Cage's character. Um, these are the moments that worked for you that didn't work for me. This scene where he's screaming in the car for mommy and daddy. Um, I it was one of those where like I can tell it was supposed to be creepy as hell, but but it wasn't. I was laughing in even the second time I was watching it, I was still laughing. I was like, all right, it's like it just feels like Nick Cage doing Nick Cageisms. Um, and then there's the scene where, I mean, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, it's where he's like singing that like Hydra song, the T-Rex song, and I thought that was a little goofy. The second time though, I still found it very unnerving, but regardless, it was one of those things where I'm like, it took me out of the movie a little bit. And the tone of the movie is so like consistent throughout, except for those two scenes where I feel like they just feel like hiccups because it's just I don't know, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. But every other scene, like the one behind me with Michael Monroe and Nick Cage, is perfect, and it's unnerving. And the movie, it doesn't rely on violence for scares, but the scene here is like one of the goriest scenes in the movie where Nicolas Cage just slams his face against the table multiple times to kill himself, and you get a close up of that face, and it is disgusting. Which is another thing I like about the movie, that the lack of like blood and violence in it, and until it's necessary, and when it hits, it fucking hits real hard. But yeah, it was just those two things in his performance that I was kind of like, all right, like it was goofy, but regardless, I don't think it takes away from it. I still think this is one of his best performances to date. He is so creepy. He is so disgusting. I wanted him to go away. And I'm glad, like, I'm kind of glad he was barely in the movie, because, like, a whole movie with that, I would just probably walked out halfway through.
I think the fact that he doesn't have a ton of screen time is very good because, like, as I mentioned, like, when he was on screen, I was like, God, just
Yeah, it's
because
like,
it was
get
so
away.
scary. But,
It's like the effect with, like, the shark in Jaws, kind of, where, like, you don't see
right.
much of the shark until towards the end of the movie or towards a certain point in the movie. So I like the way that they used him.
Yeah, I feel like if we saw him more, it wouldn't have this, like, the same, like, creepy effect that it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't have a problem with those scenes because to me, it just seemed like a guy who was just crazy, kind of
Yeah.
just psychotic,
Like,
kind of just losing his shit.
just that shit.
Yeah, and so for me, those scenes weren't they didn't break anything for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, all right. No, fair enough. Honestly, like, trust me, I know that this movie works for a lot of people. I mean, clearly, I see four stars, 5 stars all over the board with this one. Um, the score, I mean, the rating score is different. I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has like a 90% critics, but like audience is like 65% or something. So there's clearly it still works for a lot of people. There's still a lot of people that like this movie. My theater wasn't packed. I don't know about you, but I heard a lot of screenings were packed for this film. Like some were even sold out in certain places.
My screening wasn't packed the time before, so there was like a 7 o'clock showing that was pretty full, and then I went with the 7:55 because that one wasn't very full.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You almost didn't even go see this movie like that night. Like I
No, I
think it was
didn't.
me. It was me being like, "Oh, I'm going, and you're
Well,
like,
no,
"Fuck,
it was no. I wanted to see it that night. It was I didn't know if I was gonna have to work that day. And
Oh,
so,
okay,
like, it was a
gotcha."
very, yeah, basically the same thing that's gonna happen with Twisters on this Thursday. Like, I'm on call for work, so like I may have to work, and if I do have to work, I'm probably not gonna go see it on Thursday. But if I don't have to work, I will go see it. And that
I'm in no rush to go see that movie, but I do want to see it this weekend for sure.
I just Daisy Edgar Jones.
I'm going for my girl Daisy. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
Like what you sold me.
If
I
it
don't even
wasn't Daisy
I don't
Edgar
even like
Jones,
the original Twister. I just want to see
really,
her.
really,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I can't really say I'm like, oh my god, I love this movie.
I
You
love
know,
Twister.
I love the ride at Universal. I don't, yeah, but I can't say I remember much of the original movie. And that ride, I mean, it's not around anymore, so I don't really have that to rely on for anyway.
Um,
But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna definitely watch that movie too before the new one for sure. Because I just like doing that type of shit.
yeah.
But off topic, back to Longlegs. Yeah, I really like this movie. I think Osgood Perkins has a very he's got a very interesting vision.
Mhm.
He's a very good storyteller. And even though his movies are very slow burn, I attempted to watch another film of his, The Black Coat's Daughter, like years ago. Like it came out like 10 years ago or something like that. And I don't know. I think I was watching with friends and we could not get into it because it was just so slow. That's his movies. That's his style. They're just slow burns. And I won't even lie. Like there's part 2 of this movie. I found myself kind of like getting bored and kind of like zoning off and like being like, oh wait, what were they just talking? What are they talking about right now? Like it was still interesting, but I won't lie. Like I was kind of getting a little bored both times watching it in the middle of this. But I do respect his vision. I like his vision a lot. I think it's interesting, and it makes me very curious to see what else he's gonna do. I really, honestly, if they were to adapt Alan Wake 2, the video game, into a movie, which it's already a movie at this point, no need to do that. But if they were to, I think Osgood Perkins would pull it off perfectly. Like this movie felt like Alan Wake 2, from the noir aspects of detective work and a lot of the horror elements that come out of nowhere and just really get under your skin. Granted, I think this movie's a lot more disturbing story-wise than Alan Wake 2, but I think they're the same vibe. And yes, this is also my push to get you to go play that game. Please, for the love of God, play that game already. It is so good. Alan Wake 2, 10 out of 10. Go play it. That's my review for it. But yeah, what would you rate this movie?
I'm easy, no fucking question about it. Um, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Damn, boy.
I
Um,
love fucking
that makes me happy.
love this movie.
That makes me happy as fuck. I cannot go to 10 out of 10 for me personally. Now, I'm kind of somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a 7.5 is too mean because I'm like that's like giving the movie a C. Like,
Yeah.
and this movie is definitely not that. This movie is
No.
crafted so well in so many aspects of it. that that it's just kind of weird to give it that rating. So I'm gonna go with an 8 for now. This may be subjected to change on a rewatch. I also don't really see myself really rewatching this movie that much. Maybe one day if like we're hanging out and you're like, "Oi, I got long legs. I feel like popping it in." Maybe. Or if someone hasn't seen it and they're really really curious and they want me to see it with them, I'll probably watch it again. Maybe I'll wait till streaming or Blu-ray, but I won't. I'm not in a rush to it. So yeah, I'm gonna say 8 out of 10 because it is a well-crafted movie. It's a well-directed, well-acted. There's some things that don't work for me here and there, but it's not bad enough where it's gonna take away from me. But it's enough where I'm like, I can't get on the same page and call this a horror movie masterpiece. But I will say it is a very special film in the genre.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's gonna do it for my thoughts on Longlegs. Honestly, once again, if you're still with us, if you've seen the movie, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Do you believe it is a horror masterpiece like Jerry, or do you believe it's overhyped and it is, just okay? Like most people, or do you just flat out fucking hate this movie? I know a lot of people are not gonna like this movie. They're gonna say it's super overhyped and not scary at all. But again, reminder, different things are scary to different people. All right. A lot of people like the jump scares and they think that's the scariest thing ever. A lot of people like feeling mad uncomfortable throughout, and that's the scariest thing ever. And some people are just not going to get it. Some people just, it won't vibe with them. And that is fine. Okay. Not to Jerry though. He's like, that's not fine. You better watch it and you better love it. But yeah, let us know what you thought down below. Click that like button, hit subscribe. Would you like us to review any other Osgood Perkins movies? I am curious to check out Black Coat's Daughter again after watching this. I'm not gonna lie. I am curious. It's got Kierna Shipka, who has a brief cameo in this movie. Yeah, I forgot to mention her. She is a brief cameo here. She's really good for her scene. She's definitely memorable, and she's got some lines in here where I was like, oh shit, she really creeped me out. So I love that. I loved her scene. But yeah, it's got her and it got Emma Roberts in it. So honestly, this movie made me kind of want to go through his filmography again. So if you guys want us to review that, let us know. But that's going to do it for our reviews of Longlegs. Once again, I am your co-host, Brandon.
Now you're looking for trouble.